The world had grown dark and filled with wickedness. Everywhere Noah looked he saw greed, violence, and corruption. People lied, cheated, and turned their hearts away from God. It seemed that no one cared about goodness anymore. Yet in the midst of this chaos, there was one man who stood apart, a man of faith and righteousness. His name was Noah. Noah walked through the streets of his town, seeing families fighting over land and possessions, neighbors insulting one another, and children crying as the older people ignored their needs. Noah's heart ached, but he did not join the crowd in their selfishness. He listened to God, obeyed His commands, and lived a life of integrity. But God's heart was heavy with sorrow. Humanity had grown so wicked that He decided to cleanse the earth, to wipe away the corruption and give the world a fresh start. Yet He would not abandon those who were faithful. He looked upon Noah, the one man who remained righteous, and spoke words that would change the course of history forever. "No," God said, "I am going to send a great flood to cover the earth. Everything will be destroyed, but I want you to build an ark, a great boat to save yourself, your family, and 2 of every kind of animal. You must gather the creatures and bring them aboard, for the flood will come, and it will be terrible." Noah listened carefully. His mind raced. How could he possibly build such a massive ark? How would he gather every animal on the earth? And yet, Noah's faith did not waver. He bowed his head and answered, "I will do everything the Lord has commanded." Even as he made this promise, Noah knew the world would mock him. People would laugh at a man building a gigantic boat on dry land. They would call him crazy. But Noah trusted God completely. He knew that following God's command, no matter how impossible it seemed, was the only way to survive the coming storm. And so, the stage was set. Noah's journey of faith, obedience, and survival was about to begin. A journey that would test his courage, his strength, and his trust in God. The story of Noah's Ark was not just a story of a man in a boat, it was the story of hope, of salvation, and of the power of faith in a world gone astray. The skies were calm now, but soon everything would change. As Noah absorbed God's command, his heart was filled with awe and determination. The task seemed impossible. He was just one man, yet he was being asked to build a massive ark, large enough to carry his family and every kind of animal on the earth. But Noah did not hesitate. He trusted in God completely, knowing that obedience was more important than understanding. "Noah, gather your sons and your wife," God instructed, "for together you will prepare for what is to come. Build the ark according to the plan I have given you. It must be strong and sturdy, with rooms for each creature, and it must float when the waters come." Noah went home and shared God's message with his family. "The Lord has commanded us to build an ark," he said, his voice steady but filled with gravity. "We must obey Him, or we will not survive the flood that is coming." His sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, looked at him with wide eyes, understanding the enormity of the task. Together, they agreed to help their father in faith and devotion. News of Noah's mission spread quickly through the town. People laughed and mocked him openly. "A giant boat in the middle of dry land, are you mad?" "No," they jeered. Children ran by pointing and laughing. Neighbors whispered, calling him a fool. But Noah remained calm. He did not argue, he did not retaliate. Instead, he began gathering tools, measuring wood, and preparing the site where the ark would rise. Every day, Noah worked tirelessly with his family. They cut timber, shaped the planks, and assembled the hull. The ark grew larger with each passing week, its frame stretching high into the sky. Passers-by shook their heads, convinced this was a hopeless endeavor. But Noah kept his focus on God's instructions, trusting that every plank and nail was part of a greater plan. Even as the work was grueling, Noah took time to pray and meditate with his family, teaching them the importance of faith and obedience. He reminded them that this was not just a boat, but a symbol of God's mercy, a vessel of salvation for those who trusted Him. Though the town scoffed and the world doubted, Noah's faith never wavered. He understood that true courage meant following God, even when no one else believed, and so day by day, hammer stroke by hammer stroke, the ark began to take shape, a sanctuary in the midst of a world that had turned away from righteousness. The ark was no longer just a plan or a dream, it was becoming a reality, and with each plank laid, Noah's resolve grew stronger, for he knew that the time was coming when the heavens would open, and the waters would rise. With the ark's frame rising tall against the sky, Noah and his family worked tirelessly. Each day began before sunrise, the sound of hammers and saws echoing through the quiet town. Wood was cut, measured, and fitted together with precision. Every plank had a purpose, every nail a place. Though the task seemed endless, Noah never wavered. He reminded his sons and wife, "We build this ark not for ourselves alone, but for the salvation of life." As the days turned into weeks, a new challenge appeared, gathering the animals. God's command was clear. 2 of every kind, male and female, must enter the ark. At first, Noah wondered how this would be possible. But as if by divine guidance, animals began arriving. Lions and tigers stepped carefully onto the land near the ark. Elephants lumbered forward, and birds circled above, landing gently one by one. Noah's family watched in awe as the creatures followed an unseen path toward the ark. Some were playful. Young monkeys swung from trees and landed clumsily, causing bursts of laughter. Others were more cautious. A pair of giraffes stretched their long necks to peer into the ark, unsure of the strange wooden structure. Every species found its place 2 by 2, guided by God's invisible hand. Inside the ark, Noah and his sons organized the animals carefully. Stalls and pens were arranged to separate the creatures, ensuring safety and comfort. Birds perched above, mammals roamed gently, and Noah even made sure the waters were available for animals who drank from streams. The family worked in harmony, cleaning, feeding, and calming the animals as the ark slowly filled. Despite the miraculous sight, the villagers continued to mock. "Look at Noah playing zookeeper," they shouted. "He'll never finish this madness." But Noah paid no attention. His focus remained steadfast. Every creature that stepped onto the ark was a testament to God's promise. Every plank he placed was a step toward salvation. Amidst the hard labor, moments of joy and humor appeared. A pair of mischievous raccoons stole food, a goat refused to enter its pen, and a pair of parrots squawked loudly, mimicking Noah's voice. These small, lively moments brought laughter to the family, reminding them that even in a world filled with chaos, God's creation could bring light and delight. As the ark neared completion, the family prepared for the final gathering. The largest animals, including elephants and giraffes, entered last. Their careful movements tested the strength of the ark, but Noah's craftsmanship held firm. With the ark fully stocked with life, the family stepped back to admire their work. It was no longer just wood and nails, it was a vessel of hope, a sanctuary of survival, a symbol of faith and obedience. The sun began to set, casting golden light upon the ark. Noah looked toward the horizon, knowing the time was coming when the heavens would open and the waters would rise. The ark stood ready, filled with creatures of every kind and a family devoted to God's command. The journey of faith was far from over, but they were prepared, and soon, the storm would arrive, testing everything they had built, and everything they believed. The sky darkened, and the first drops of rain began to fall. At first, they were gentle, barely enough to wet the ground. But soon, the clouds thickened, turning the world gray and heavy. Thunder rumbled across the heavens, and lightning flashed, illuminating the towering ark. Noah and his family hurried inside with the animals, closing the large wooden doors behind them. The rain intensified, hammering the ark like the beat of 1,000 drums. The wind howled, bending trees and tossing debris across the landscape. Outside, the townspeople screamed in terror, running through rising waters only to be swept away by the flood. The world that had mocked Noah was now powerless against the unstoppable force of God's command. Inside the ark, the atmosphere was tense yet controlled. Noah guided the animals, ensuring the lions and tigers remained separated from smaller creatures. While birds fluttered to their designated perches, his sons worked tirelessly to feed, calm, and protect every creature. Water seeped into the lower decks, but the ark held firm, floating steadily as the flood consumed the earth. Hours turned into days. Rain fell without cease, rivers overflowed, and the ocean surged, covering the mountains and valleys alike. The ark floated amidst the relentless waves, a lone sanctuary in a world submerged. Yet within its wooden walls, faith and hope thrived. Noah and his family prayed, comforting one another and singing songs of trust, their voices rising above the roar of the storm. Despite the chaos, there were moments of awe. Noah watched a pair of giraffes leaning over, peering curiously through the windows at the rising waters. A family of monkeys huddled together for warmth, their tiny hands clutching each other. The roar of a lion echoed through the decks, a reminder of the strength and majesty of God's creation. Even in the flood, life persevered. Days passed, and the rains finally began to slow. The floodwaters remained high, but the storm lost its fury. Noah sent out a raven to search for land. It flew in circles before returning, then he released a dove, which returned with a small olive branch in its beak, a sign that the waters were receding, and hope was on the horizon. The ark rested atop the waters, stable and strong. Noah's heart swelled with gratitude. God's promise had been fulfilled. The family had endured the storm, saved by their obedience and faith. The animals, 2 by 2, had survived to continue life on earth. Outside, the world was washed clean, ready for a new beginning, and inside, a story of courage, faith, and perseverance had been written forever. Noah looked around at his family, at the creatures who had become like companions through this ordeal, and whispered a prayer of thanks. "We have been preserved," he said softly. "Through faith, through obedience, we have seen God's mercy. And soon the sun will shine again, and life will begin anew." After what felt like endless days and nights, the rain finally ceased. The storm clouds began to break, revealing patches of blue sky and the first rays of sunlight glinting on the water. Slowly the floodwaters began to recede, revealing the tops of mountains and trees once hidden beneath the waves. The world was quiet, except for the gentle lapping of water against the ark. Noah peered out through a small window, watching as the waters drew back. He took a deep breath and called his sons. "It is time," he said. Together, they opened the ark's door carefully, allowing the fresh air and sunlight to flow inside. The animals stirred, some cautiously stepping onto dry land for the first time in weeks, others leaping with joy and curiosity. Noah released a dove, which soared gracefully into the sky. Moments later, it returned, clutching a small olive branch in its beak, a divine sign that the earth was healing and life could begin new. Hope filled Noah's heart as he realized that God had kept his promise. Faith, obedience, and courage had triumphed over the storm. The family stepped out of the ark, their feet touching the renewed earth. Noah looked around at the world, still soaked but cleansed, and bowed in prayer. "Thank you, Lord," he whispered, his voice steady with gratitude. "You have preserved us, you have shown mercy, and you have renewed the earth." Around him, animals roamed freely, exploring the land and discovering the world anew. Birds sang in the trees, lions and tigers paced the plains, and gentle creatures like deer and rabbits bounded across the grass. Life had returned, vibrant and resilient, a testament to God's power and love. Noah's family worked together to care for the animals, just as they had inside the ark. Each task, though small, was filled with meaning. Every step they took on dry ground was a reminder that perseverance and faith could withstand even the greatest trials. The ark, once a symbol of labor and anticipation, now stood as a monument to survival, obedience, and hope. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Noah spoke to his family, sharing words of wisdom for the future. "Let us remember this day," he said, "and teach our children that faith in God, courage in the face of fear, and obedience to his word can carry us through any storm." And so, Noah's ark became more than a vessel of wood and nails. It became a story of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of faith. The world had been renewed, and humanity was given a second chance. From that day forward, the rainbow would shine in the sky as a promise that God's love and mercy would never be forgotten.